Hello and welcome to the Collapse Experiment. Are you having trouble finding a job? Have you tried lying? This is not advice. I do not agree with this. This is just what I have seen in the past. And I have a feeling you might have seen it too. So, when I worked at the hospital, I was put in a position where, along with my job duties, they would occasionally call me to come downstairs and help work with these. They called them team interviews. So instead of the supervisor themselves interviewing somebody that might get hired into the company and in our department, they would have other people in the department help interview with them, which really didn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to us, considering they already had the questions all written down that we were going to ask. Legally, there's only certain things that you can ask, and depending on how they answer, you really can't dive any further. So, for some reason, when it came to an open supervisor position, even though I was helping with this, I was also helping with, they called them Kaizen events. It's where you try to break things down to the most simple point and then figure out what you can do to change those certain things to make it more economical, make it faster. They're really big on like trying to cut the turnaround time between a patient exiting the ER and a new patient being admitted to the ER, cutting down on wait time. So I'm doing these interviews, and one of them was for a supervisor. We had 3 applicants. 2 of them already, no, actually, no, I changed that. All 3 of them already worked for the hospital. One was working as a floor tech. Another one I had just trained to do my job. So he was a environmental tech. And then I forget what the other chick was doing. But they all had very different backgrounds. The one that I had just trained, he was young, he was in his early 20s, just graduated from high school. Did I mention this is his first real job? But for some reason, management really liked this guy because he had a degree in business, which, if you lived in Kalamazoo anywhere between 2000 and 2020, everyone was going to school for either business or they already had a degree in business. The market for these business degrees was so oversaturated, it was insane. Everybody had a damn business degree, and we wonder why shit fell apart in 2008. So, the other guy, he was working as a floor tech, and he got hired in after losing his job when the Little Caesars he was a manager of. A manager. He actually ran the business and scheduling and payroll and all that stuff for 7 years. He did this for 7 years. And then because the franchise closed, he was out of a job. So he goes to Bronson, tries to get his foot in the door. You got to get your foot in the door. And then this position opens up, and he's like, I already know how to do this. So he puts in his application, and he gets an interview. And then the third person was this chick that apparently before working at the hospital, she worked at a prison. And we'll get more into that later. So we start going through the interviews. Now, how I looked at it was we had one qualified applicant. I prefer somebody with experience in doing something and knowing how to do it and having done it for a long time over somebody who kind of sort of learned about it while never actually having a job before and doesn't actually know what they're supervising over. Like, these are the idiots that come in and say, "Why do you do it like that?" Jesus Christ, I've been doing the same shit for the last 10 years, and this fucking idiot's gonna tell me I'm doing it wrong. So, anyways, the Little Caesars guy is the one who should have gotten the job. He interviewed, he knew all of his stuff, he stated what his experience was. It's not like he was fired from the position. The place that he was running closed, and that was up to the owner, not him. He wasn't the owner. So then the boss, the manager, she was really big on the college guy, and I was just like, are you like I had he was one of the few people I had trouble training because he had this attitude of, I'm above this. I have a college degree. I should be the one that's supervising over you. Why are you training me? Because you've never done a fucking thing in your life except for take some tests, okay? Then we get to number 3. So she comes in, she starts doing the interview. The question comes up, well, what did you do at the prison? And she's like, I was a prison guard. And the manager, our department manager, was like, I like this. Tell me more. And she starts asking her questions like, if you couldn't get an inmate to go in their cell, what would you do? Well, I tell him, you either get in there yourself or I'm going to use the pepper spray. Do you see a problem here? Her whole way of getting somebody to do something was, you either do it because I tell you or there's going to be violence. Is this something that we need at work? In a civilized workplace, which, let's be real, are there any civilized workplaces? So yeah, this is her answer. And my boss just ate it up. She loved it. She's like, maybe that's the kind of thing we need to switch things up around here. And I'm like, I don't know who the blank you're talking to, but I'm sitting right here. And I know I can list off like a half dozen retards you have running around in this place that don't do jack shit. And that's really like your fault for not addressing it. So I don't know what the hell you expect this bitch to do. So out of the 3, yeah, she's the one that got hired. She's the one that became a supervisor. So the other 2, before I go deeper into this chick, and not in that way, the other 2, the floor tech, the one that actually had the experience and had done that job, well, he kind of came across with the attitude afterwards of like, there's nowhere for me to go here. I have all this experience and they're not interested. So he was working 3rd shift. And on 3rd shift, there's no supervisors. So whatever part of the hospital was under construction or being remodeled, meaning there's no staff on 3rd shift, it's closed to the public, you can pretty much hide in there with your Xbox 360 and do whatever you want for your 8 to 10 hour shift. That is what ended up happening for several weeks. Then they got caught, and then he was let go. I can almost understand the mentality of it, like just the insult and the notion, like, this is the guy I wanted hired. Because I was like, he has the skill, why aren't you using it? College guy hasn't proven himself, and I don't know what a prison guard has anything to do with being a supervisor. Nothing. Like, nothing. College guy, well, when he didn't get the job, he stuck around for a few weeks until he got hired somewhere else outside of the hospital. Vamonos. Like, gone. Of course. He wasn't going to stick around and actually do work. That's not what he went to school for. What? Manual labor? What the? So now we get the new supervisor check. So I quickly learned after it was announced that she got the job that she had lied, completely fabricated just about the whole thing. She did work at a prison. What she did was she was basically not even a secretary. She was like a greeter. She was the person where visitors would come in and they'd fill out the little thing and she'd tell them go wait over here and then they'd be taken off somewhere else. She had zero. She had no contact with prisoners ever. That wasn't her job. She was never a guard. She was never in uniform. If she carried pepper spray, that was her choice and her purse. But not at work. No. So she made up a ton of bullshit during the interview as to what her job was because she kind of had an idea as to what it is the boss wanted to hear. And it worked. Yeah, she bullshitted her way into becoming a supervisor. Which again, if you have to lie yourself into the position, is that somebody you really want looking over other people? So yeah, she completely 100% lied. And she ended up being my boss for like 2-3 months. And that was fun because right after she got that position, she had 2 of her cousins hired into the hospital. And for some reason, they ended up in positions that she was in charge of. So she had her one cousin who looked like Winnie the Pooh. It was quite amazing. She actually looked like freaking Winnie the Pooh. And then she had another cousin who, again, was a complete liar as to his past. It turns out he was a Marine. Now, you can go in the comment section and you can degrade me all you want and say like, hey, once a Marine, always a Marine. But let me continue on with this. The only reason he ended up becoming a Marine was because he was involved in some local gang activity. And one of the judges said, well, I can either ruin your entire life or you can make something of yourself. So instead of sending his ass to prison, he joins the Marine Corps. Charges get dropped to a misdemeanor. He ends up being sent over to Iraq, but this guy is such a fuck up that he's not out in Fallujah with the rest of his unit. No, he's back at the base handing out socks and stuff at the PX. He was in charge of the PX. And then apparently, from my understanding, he got like an early discharge because things were becoming missing from the PX and they didn't know if it was like him stealing shit or if he just wasn't filling out paperwork correctly, which was probably a combination of both, if you ask me. Because this guy was a piece of work. I ended up training him in the ER where he lasted almost 2 weeks. We almost got into a fist fight because he decided because his cousin was his supervisor that he could just sit in the break room the entire shift and not do shit. Well, we had gunshot victims coming in. We've got a car accident coming in. We got people in the waiting room that need to have their rooms. It was a shit show. And that day it was just me and him. And I finally got in his face and was like, look, you either need to clean one of these rooms or get the fuck out. Like, I need to know if I'm here by myself or if you're actually going to do something. And we almost duked it out, and he got sent to another unit after that. After I was called a racist. by a couple people. It was weird. It's one of those meetings with your supervisor. It was her and it was him, and HR wasn't there. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I have them by the balls right now. And she was like, we just want to address this racist thing that happened. And I was like, no, this is the situation. You can ask the charge nurse, and these people are witnesses. And I named them off, and they all saw this happen. And the fact that he was not doing his job and expecting me to do everything for him because you're his cousin. Once I said that, everything was dropped. That was a big no-no. Then he got moved to the North Campus, where they caught him clocking in at 7, leaving at 7:30 a.m., coming back at 3, and clocking out at 3:30. Like, getting in his car, leaving the campus, and then coming back at 3 to clock back out for the day. Because nobody could find him. And he was doing this for like a good week or two before they finally just grabbed security camera footage to be like, where the hell is this guy? Yeah, and then Winnie the Pooh, she got me kicked out of my area that I had, where I ended up with this nice cushy job right behind the ER, which was kind of nice. And it was laid back, and all I had to do was like schedule how I went about cleaning stuff and where I needed to be and when I needed to pull trash from this place and when they were done with CT scans. Yeah, it was actually pretty cushy. It was such a cushy job that her cousin, Winnie the Pooh, wanted it. And so my supervisor, started harassing me about, like, I got a complaint that this area wasn't cleaned. And I was like, oh, what day was this? This was on Tuesday. I didn't work Tuesday. Well, they said it's been happening, and it was also on Monday. No, it wasn't. Yeah, yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Do I need to go ask them? Because I know I wasn't working Tuesday, and I have a pretty good guess as to who was working here Tuesday. Yeah. So that's what you get. That's what you get when people lie their way into positions and people just eat it up. And of course, the manager, like, even if you told the manager, here's the thing, even if you went to the manager and said, hey, look, I have information that her whole story about being this prison guard is bullshit. Never fucking happened. She's just lying her way into the job. They can't admit that they've been duped because that's going to make them look insecure. Like, they don't have a grasp on what's really happening. So even when you out the people who lied their way in, the managers are going to ignore it because they're like, well, this is going to make me look bad now. Which is complete bullshit. So then, just another side story. We had these two people in my department. This is still at the hospital. They had been working there for over a decade, both of them. They got hired in, they had their jobs, they've been working there. And I look at this hospital newsletter, and it has a picture of these two, and I know them fairly well. And it had them holding these diplomas, and I'm like, did they go to college or something? Like, what the heck? I didn't know this. And I was like, congratulations on getting your GED. What? Because here's another tip. When you graduate from high school, and I did this, I'm like, oh, I need this piece of paper to prove that I graduated from high school, right? No. Here's the thing. You graduate, you start filling out job applications. You write down what high school you went to, when you graduated, and everything. They never ask for proof. Ever. So even if you drop out of high school, you could just put down, yeah, I went to such and such high school. I graduated this year. And they're never going to check. Never. They'll check your previous employer. They'll call them up and say, hey, did you have a so-and-so employed from this date to this date? Yep. Okay, thanks. And that's what happened with the prison. That's where she was able to lie about her job, because beyond that, HR can't ask anything else. So these two, they get hired into the hospital. Every position in the hospital requires at least a GED. All of them. But no, these two, they lie, they get in. Then the hospital congratulates them for completing their GED, which, okay, but there's still a problem here. They lied to get in. So I don't know what the answer or the solution is to that. Maybe giving them a pat on the back for like fulfilling this obligation was the correct answer. I don't know. But the fact that they lied and they took a job from somebody else who was actually qualified and had the qualifications the hospital is looking for, perhaps that was a shitty thing to do. I don't know. And one of them had an office position. That was the other thing. Like, she wasn't working on the floors cleaning stuff. No. She was downstairs filling out paperwork and ordering shit and doing this and sending out emails. And she just got her GED. I don't know. So, according to these stories and the things that I have seen, if you're having trouble looking for a job, perhaps you should consider just fucking lying. Because if you're honest about your experience and what you do, and I just saw one guy, I saw a guy, it was like a TikTok thing, where he was like, yeah, so I have this degree, I'm looking for these jobs, they want somebody with 10 years experience, so I lie and say I have 99 years experience. And he gets a call back. And he was like, the math doesn't even make sense. But they called me back, and that's all I wanted. So yeah, I don't know. It just seems like everybody's full of shit these days, and maybe that's why things are going the way that they're going, is you just have people bullshitting their way into these positions that they're not qualified for, and that is why everything is crumbling to the fucking ground. I mean, who knows what the hell Janet Yellen's previous experience was before she started running the Federal Reserve. She probably was doing some type of like at-home Tupperware party, selling man, what is that shit that people used to go have those little parties for? And Amway. She probably sold Amway. That's probably what's going on at the Federal Reserve. A fucking Ponzi scheme. A little pyramid scheme of bullshit, which is why the dollar is worthless now. Keep on typing.